following announcement has been paid for by the
Mark Order. Welcome to the Elite Mark Order podcast, where we talk about Dynamite and all things AEW related. I've got a PhD in THC. I'm the Doctor of Pot, Cosmic Scott, and I'm joined by my partner and co-host today, who's out to play in the day, JV. How are you, Jay?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to another podcast over a really strange episode of AEW Dynamite to help set up All In.
Yeah, and we've got some big all-in news, so let's talk about that. But first, if you haven't already, please give us a subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment down below on what your thoughts were on Dynamite. It really, really helps, so we appreciate it. And we are on the drive for 1,000 subscribers, so please hit that button. And let's talk about, well, first let's talk about the news. News broke this morning that Cash Wheeler has gotten himself arrested, and not for something small. These are felony charges, aggravated assault, and some sort of related gun charge. That's not good at all. That really is going to put All In some jeopardy, because he may not be able to travel out of country. That fucks up that big Young Bucks All In. I assume, regardless, they're losing the belts at this point. There's no way, and Dax gets to be a solo wrestler for a while. There's no way Cash stays on camera after this, at least for a few months. And God forbid he keeps the title. They've got to drop it. But is it at All In? Is it all out? Are they no longer able to wrestle in front of 80,000 people? Jay, what do you think about this news?
I think it's pretty rough. I mean, it was really the only match on the card that I was looking forward to. I mean, besides MJF Cole, I think it's going to be great. But, you know, with Kenny not having a singles match, with Danielson being out,
yeah,
you know, a lot of those marquee matchups that we expected to see are not on the show. You know, we were hoping to see Danielson versus Zack Sabre. We were hoping to see Kenny versus Ospreay. And, you know, we've got Bucks FTR, and now none of those are happening. We're getting Ospreay, Jericho. Danielson is out. We don't know who Zack Sabre's fighting yet. Yeah, there's the card is pretty weak right now.
Well, I'll tell you, the Kenny Omega match wasn't going to be Will Ospreay, and I'll tell you why. And that's because it's a New Japan match, and they're going to have their New Japan rematch over the belt, and Kenny's going to lose, and all that. That just can't happen for AEW, and I understand that. But I do think that it was going to be Kenny Omega versus Danielson. They were building towards that big time. And that would have been, certainly in my opinion, absolutely worth All In. Would that would have been yeah, right?
That would have been a great main event for sure. And yeah, it's unfortunate we're not going to get that.
And so
I don't know, maybe with Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what we're seeing is the on the fly from Tony. And he's just sort of jumping in and, okay, well, if we can't have this match, maybe we do this match. And we know he's not great at it. We know a lot of this is, let's get people on the card. Let's get as many people to show up in London to perform as much as possible, because who knows when they're going to be at this type of show ever again. And I understand that mentality. There's no way they could do 15 singles matches. So they have to do... They're serving two masters. Everybody says their pay-per-views are too long. Everybody says they want to see all their favorites. But then everybody also says they don't want to see all these multiple tag matches. Now, I agree. I'd have loved to see Kenny versus Brian Danielson. That would have been absolutely top-notch, top-tier. If it wasn't a main event, it could have absolutely been co-main event. Because, let's face it, the title MJF Cole is going to be pretty fantastic. Would it have been as big as Omega Danielson? Well, it would have been the third for Omega Danielson, and they've gone 2 hour time limits. So the fact is, All In is a much weaker show than we ever anticipated. Mercedes is out. Hayter is out. The possibility of those two wrestling was taken away months ago. Now, is there a possibility that somebody like Mercedes is healed up enough? We don't know how bad her damage actually was. If it was a sprain, certainly she could show up. If it was an actual break, she could be out for a few more months. Would that have helped at all if there was a bigger women's draw since all the men are hurt?
Yeah, I think Hayter versus Sasha would have been huge, especially since it, being in the UK for Hayter's home country. Yeah, it's just a lot of injuries have really derailed this card, and then the booking on top of it. The booking hasn't been very very good. So yeah, it's just unfortunate that the build to this has not been great, and with all the injuries, and now with Dax. With Cash of FTR potentially not being able to go, it really depends on the terms of the bail whether he can go. I think there's a chance. To me, I think it's 50-50 right now whether he'll be able to go. And if they do go, if he's, I don't know anything about what happened. So
yeah, we only have reports.
I don't know.
We only have the police reports, which is the gun-related aggravated assault, which, again, just by its nature, is pretty nasty. Aggravated assault alone means you got into a fight and you beat the shit out of someone. But
do we know who pressed the charges?
I assume the poor douche that probably ended up in the hospital because he fought a wrestler. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Cash is in the right. Especially since a gun's involved. We don't know any of the details. So...
it could have just been some road rage thing where he felt threatened, pulled it out to protect himself, and then the guy is pressing charges, and Dax really did nothing wrong. So...
Sure.
But if it's like a domestic thing where,
it's against his wife, that would be bad. That would be bad.
She was getting a little rowdy and the gun came out, that's a whole different thing. So
exactly.
We just don't know right now.
And so we have to bring up the fact we aren't reporters, journalists, or anything. We're simply commenting on the fact that this has happened and been released. We don't know shit. What we know is he got arrested. When those details come out, it's certainly going to put a spin on what happens, and so we had to talk about it because it's probably going to affect All In, because it's a week and a half away. If nothing else, the Young Bucks are now taking the titles. They have to. They even if they pass to somebody else almost immediately, like they did last time, they have to take the titles. There's no way that you can keep the titles unless there's complete exoneration at some point. But in a week and a half, I don't know. It's just unfortunate that All In, much like the first Forbidden Door, seems to have some sort of curse around it. Because, man, just more shit could not go wrong for the build-up to literally the biggest wrestling event of all time. And... asterisk, North Korea, 300,000 people forced to show up and it was free. So, that aside, biggest of all, paid. People paid for this show. Now let's actually talk about Dynamite a little bit, shall we? Jay, what do you think about that idea?
I think that's why we're here. So
okay.
I'm all for it.
Fantastic. I appreciate your support. And I appreciate all of you who are listening. So give us a like, give us a comment, and give us a subscribe if you haven't. I want to talk about the top segment, which to me, there's no question about it. Your brand new Texas Chainsaw Death Match Masterpiece Champion, Jeff Jarrett. I've got to talk about that match. That thing was garbage. I'm sorry, but not only was the staging of that garbage, the execution was low energy, poorly done, and yes, it was a comedy garbage sponsored match. And this is about the quality of sponsored matches that we have become accustomed to seeing. Do I think it's as bad as, say, the zombie match for ECW? Or not ECW, for WWE. ECW had the zombie. The zombie match was the epitome of bad. Is it WCW Chucky bad? Is it RoboCop bad? Jay, how bad do you rate the Texas Chainsaw Masterpiece?
I had a big problem with the timing of this. You're supposed to be promoting your big pay per view, the biggest event. Like, I mean, this is AEW's opportunity to show that they're not just the challenger, to show that they're on par with the largest wrestling promotion on the planet. And we're dicking around with gimmick matches with guys who aren't draws, who aren't on the show, so we can do a money grab for $100,000, which is it come out that the chainsaw death match or whatever this video game is paid him $100,000 for the sponsorship. So it's like, I mean, you have, what's the gate it all in? 10 million? What's the potential? How many millions are we talking about with the potential pay-per-view buys? And
well, they in their defense, they donated the proceeds, including that $100,000, to Fight for the Fallen, which in this case was the victims of the Maui fire.
The Khan family has what, $15 billion or something. So it would be the equivalent of us giving the Maui thing 50 cents. So it's like, I don't think that's an excuse at all. It's great that they're doing it, but it's just like, I felt like it was an excuse that Tony said that. But I think the whole thing is just awful. This is like Vince Russo type bullshit. Wow. And it's really concerning what's going to happen. I mean, I think in a month from now, I'm really concerned what AEW is going to look like. You know, FTR potentially being out, that leaves Collision with Punk and Dax, and then half the rest of the roster isn't allowed to be on Collision. You got
that's a whole nother argument and an entirely different podcast.
I almost feel like this is like a self-destruction that's starting right now. And it's like, why the fuck? You have literally, you're trying to sell 2 pay-per-views in a week.
It's true, back to back.
You have the potential to make millions of dollars that you can put back into the company and reinvest into the company to maybe hire someone who can get the sound to work on the show properly, or to bring in a talent from Japan and convince him to change continents where he wants to wrestle. Something that can improve the product, and we're dicking around with with a quick cash grab for $100,000, booking a show like Vince Russo. It's just asinine that this. I did not watch most of the segment. I fast forward through it until Satnam Singh was on, because Satnam Singh is worth watching. But other than
Satellites Unite,
at the Satellites Unite, I get to meet Satnam in a week.
Oh, fantastic! Oh my god, get a handprint. Get a fucking handprint of the dude. Oh my god! I'm gonna
see how much I'll have to pay him for him to chop me. I just want to work one chop from Satnam.
I want a video of that. I want a video of that bad. Even just the sound of it. Even just the sound of it would be great.
I would probably die. So he would
crush your chest like a walnut.
So I mean. Yeah, it's just so I can't. I did see the finish of the match, which I guess in that type of a match I was fine with it. Like, but now was not the time. If this would have been 6 weeks from now or a month from now, I would have laughed it off and had a good time. But it's like, I'm concerned about the future of the company when the most important event in AEW history, the most important 2 weeks in AEW history, is right now, and he's dicking around with this shit for $100,000. It's like, what are you doing, man?
It's amazing PR. It got them amazing news coverage. It's an extraordinarily intelligent business move, because businesses are predicated on one thing and one thing only, and that's making more money. By giving away $100,000, there's a huge ROI that he's getting back from. And it's sad to look at it from those very, very cold, draconic eyes. But that's what he's doing, is he's buying himself more additional positive press, positive PR, positive sentiment that allows him to continue to challenge for that number one position. I don't disagree that they are not necessarily promoting the biggest event of all time the best. However, they have a history of promoting it basically a week or two before. That's just kind of the way they've been doing it. Now, could they have done better? Sure. Tony Khan is not a promoter turned wrestling owner. He's a fan booker turned wrestling owner. So his skills at promoting aren't nearly as good as he could book fun matches, which we know he's a fun guy to watch him book those matches. Lots of these are really good. Some of them might even still be his ideas. Who knows? We don't know the day-to-day anymore. We know he gets final say. So maybe a lot of this is just the people he's put in power. QT, Sanjay Dutt, who I constantly try to call Satnam Singh. Maybe these are the guys who really suck at booking that he needs to replace with people like Will Washington and some of these other guys that he's brought in. I forget, there was another new guy that came in that people are like, oh God, he actually knows what he's doing. So maybe that is going to help improve the product. We know Collision has been booked really, really well for all its flaws.
Well, that's very subjective, but...
Well, I mean, compared to this...
I mean, Punk has booked himself well. I'm not going to argue with that.
All right. I hear you.
But I do disagree with your statement that this was a business move to get that the $100,000 buys him more press. I disagree. I think that the net gain from that is going to be small in comparison with the amount of pay-per-view buys he's not going to get now, because he's dicking around on TV instead of promoting his shows. So I think it's a net negative. We'll see how the numbers do. I hope he can rebound next week and put on a really good show and convince people to buy the show, because from what I'm seeing on Twitter and just from what I'm seeing on social media is people's interest in these pay-per-views is down right now. And this thing with Dax or with Cash is concerning as well. So
yeah,
I think it's just too bad that we've had 3-4 months to build these pay-per-views. He's done a great job with the main event. I mean, it's one of the best builds I've ever seen with Punk and Adam Cole. But I just the whole rest of the card seems like an afterthought, other than the. Well, I was going to say other than the Jericho Kayla stuff, which they've been building, but here you have Will Ospreay, who's a face in Japan, and Jericho's who's been a heel for a faction for months. You have
years.
Jericho go
years.
face and years, and you have Jericho go face, and Will Ospreay now is forced to play the heel after he's been a face. So it's just, I don't know. Will Ospreay's in his home country. So why do you want his home fans booing him against Chris Jericho, who turned face yesterday because Don Callis, Tony fucked that all up too. It's atrocious.
I'm gonna tell you, that smells of Jericho. It doesn't smell of Tony Khan. That's Jericho trying to get a face pop in England in front of 80,000 people so that they sing his song. But what I've heard from the Brits I've talked to and the Brits I listen to on the news, Will Ospreay is going to get cheered no matter what.
Yep. Sure.
Because he's a legit international superstar. This is his home country, his home turf. And his fans will be there in force. He is going to be a face in this match no matter what they do. And Jericho's going to get booed out of the fucking stadium. Doesn't matter what they do in front of America. Doesn't matter what they try to do on TV. The Brits are cheering their guy. Period. And Aussie Open, his guys are there. They may lose. They may, who knows what's going on with that entire storyline. We'll talk about that later. But as far as All In goes, I think Will Ospreay is going to be in a good spot no matter what. And potentially, this is the biggest audience any of them will ever be in front of. Unless something bigger comes along, and that's going to be hard to do at this point. Because interest in wrestling in general seems to be turning down a little bit. All of the heat that AEW generated, all of the buzz, all of the interest, all of that momentum, we'll see what happens after All Out. the ratings this last week were dreadful. They were great to start, and then it didn't fall off a cliff, but it sure dropped fast. And I'll tell you which match it was. It was this one. It was the death match. And part of it, for me, was because I'm watching it on my television, and it's nice and dark, and they're running through some hallway, and there's a red light. I'm like, okay, so what's going on? And then they go into picture-in-picture. And the majority of picture-in-picture, it was just a black screen. I mean, yeah, there was little blobs moving around, but what the fuck was I supposed to see? Now, I went back after the show. I went back yesterday, and I rewatched that segment. I watched the International Fight TV stream, the AEW Plus, and I watched through picture-in-picture. And what was in picture-in-picture was absolute garbage. It was them walking down a hallway. Mostly it was Karen screaming run as they lightly jogged. Then Karen and JJ, the master entertainer he is, hid as the camera pointed at their hiding spot. They were hiding as the camera pointed at their hiding spot. Then the camera pointed at the hallway, and here comes Jeff Hardy. And guess what? Jeff finds them, and they start brawling. This was worthless. There was one bright spot. Literally, as Sanjay Dutt made a big entrance during picture-in-picture, where he was backlit, and he got the big grand entrance, and he got to make a difference. And he was legitimately a difference maker in this match. He hit the low blow that cleared out Matt Hardy. He did a lot of things, but the fact is he got his big moment in picture-in-picture, and the announcers never talked about anything about him once the camera actually came back on. So he had this big intro in a little tiny screen. Now, all of that to be said, when they came back from picture-in-picture, they were mostly in the well-lit ring where the final of the match came in. Sanjay Dutt, he did what he does, and they had a big clusterfuck TNA finish. Satnam Singh eventually got to absolutely destroy Jeff Hardy, and then they put Jeff Jarrett over him because he'd gotten put through a table. It was a garbage match with a garbage finish. They counted 3. Jeff Jarrett wins, and he gets a belt with Leatherface's face on it. So he's the new Texas Deathmatch champion. And I'm kind of here for it. Does that mean he has to do Texas Chainsaw death matches, and he has to have Leatherface come out for every match? Are we going to see that weekly? I'd be all right with it.
I don't think we'll ever see the belt again.
Oh, no, it's Jeff Jarrett. You know he's talking about that belt. You know he's bringing that belt with him.
See it again.
Oh, no way. How could they do that? It's such a prestigious belt.
Well, if Chainsaw Game wants to pay Tony to keep the title around, he will. Otherwise, it's gone.
That's fair. The fact that they actually had a belt for it was completely stupid.
I thought that was kind of funny, but I mean, AEW already has too many titles, so
that's the only reason it was funny.
Confuse the casual fans even more. They're like, "Oh, is that another belt?"
I'm sorry, if I was a casual fan and all I saw was that really, really dark picture with red and Karen screaming, and it was garbage. It was absolutely the worst segment. Now, that said, it was super funny in a lot of ways. And minus a few things, such as it being a week and a half before the biggest pay-per-view of all time, and this being the introduction for a lot of casual fans, causing a massive drop in ratings on a fairly critical show, I would think that perhaps they might have put it somewhere else. Now, again, because of the big cash grab aspect, because they have to promote that they're putting this on their big show for $100,000, they couldn't put it on Rampage. I wouldn't pay for it to be on Rampage for the same amount that maybe Collision, but they couldn't do Collision because Matt Hardy was in it. This is just becoming a clusterfuck. This match is starting to epitomize exactly what's going on in AEW. Who booked this garbage? Who staged this? Who thought that going down a hallway, which Taz tried to sell as a hallway of horror, who the fuck booked this garbage?
Who was the producer?
Right, who was the producer? Let's find that out. I bet it was Matt Hardy himself, because he's one of the backstage producers. But the fact is, it was overbooked, overworked. You had that fake bloodbath spot. You had Satnam Singh eventually get chained up. You had Sanjay Dutt make a big good guy cavalry save, but they're heels. You had Jeff Jarrett running from the Hardys like the Hardys were the Slashers. What kind of fucked up Facebooking did Jeff think he was doing? I don't know what was going on with this match. I do know it was very, very long. I don't know what the actual minute counts were, but it felt like a fucking eternity, because I couldn't see what was going on. Then when they came back from picture in picture and they went in the ring, there was a bunch of smoke. Did somebody use a fire extinguisher? No. There was just smoke. For no reason. Why was there smoke? What was with the smoke? Did the smoke do anything? Did it help anything? Jay, explain to me what the smoke was about.
I didn't see it because like I said, I only watched the end of the match, so I don't even know.
You saved yourself some time. And torture. Yeah. And torture. It really... The Swanton Bob through the table should have been the end, but of course it was broken up. Then you got the overbooked spot where Satnam Singh came out, chokeslammed Jeff, and then they had the finish. But what a garbage match that was. I can't stop talking about it. Now, is that good? Is that bad? Is this a matter of any controversy creates cash? Any press is good press? I'm not. Am I a victim of Stockholm syndrome? What is it about this match that I can't? I hate it. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely hate it. But Jeff Jarrett's in it, and Jeff Jarrett wins a belt. But it was just so bad, so bad. Let's talk.
It's got a 2.24 rating on Cage Match, which is one of the lowest rated matches in AEW history. I should have run the filter to see where it actually stacks up and to see what some of the challenges are. But the only match that I think might have a lower rating also involved a Hardy, and it was the Matt Hardy concussion match against Sammy Guevara.
Yeah.
When Matt tried to continue fighting after he was clearly concussed.
And people were mad. People were mad about that match.
Yeah,
people
were upset.
No, they didn't. They were mad. And yeah, the ratings definitely show as a result. But let's talk about a good match. Let's talk about one of the best matches of the night. One of the high spots that probably should have been the main event. Thank you, Red-Headed Kingpin, for that point. The International Championship. Orange Cassidy versus Wheeler Yuta. Now, I happen to like Dynamite opening up with Orange Cassidy. I love that. It's a fantastic way to really show casual people, new viewers, you've got fucking stars. And Orange Cassidy tells a story. His matches have been great. It was 3-on-1 and he still won this time around. So I loved this match. Orange Cassidy, of course, won. Wheeler Yuta, of course, lost. But it furthers the Blackpool Combat Club angle later on after the match. As always, Cassidy was telling the story. His arm was hurt. His leg was hurt. His back was hurt. His fist was hurt. His neck was hurt. Now his leg was hurt by Yuta. I don't think there's a body part left that isn't hurt on this man. And yet he's still, much like the last time they met, still gets a roll-up style pin, but a pin nonetheless. Great story. Love the match. Love the opening. This is how I love Dynamite to start. Jay, what was your opinion? What'd you think?
I agree that Orange's music hitting is always a good start to Dynamite. He's a great lead to open the show and get people interested and help tee up the rest of the show. I thought the finish of the match was excellent. I guess other than the roll up, I thought the finishing sequence was really good. But I just wish that they would have maybe let him finish him with an orange punch or something. But they did go with the roll up, which makes sense for these guys. They started getting beat down. BCC started beating down Orange, and I was just like, "What the fuck?" I mean, why didn't the Best Friends? Why weren't they out there already? But waiting a minute allowed the Best Friends to get the pop when they ran out, which was fine. And then the Lucha Brothers came out.
And there was a big brawl. It was a big brawl. It was a big brawl. But
then, finally, the big surprise: Eddie Kingston's music hit, and the crowd went bonkers. I think it was probably the peak of last night's show was Eddie Kingston coming out. I was happy to see him on TV.
Of course.
It's his big return after fighting in the G1 Climax tournament in Japan and getting to hang out with Kawada. So
winning a title.
Yep.
Congrats on Eddie.
And so we got a 6-on-3 here, and they announced the Stadium Stampede match at All In. So it's going to be Kingston, Lucha Brothers, Best Friends, against Mox, Yuta, and Claudio, and 3 other people, whoever you can find. I don't know who those people are going to be. I don't know if it's going to be people from New Japan. I don't know if it's going to be people who are in AEW. I mean, it could be anybody.
Well,
Any thoughts on who the 3 people who are going to team with BCC might be?
So number 1, I think, is been talked about. It's been rumored. He's been backstage already. And I think a one-time appearance at All In would be perfect. And that's Chris Hero. I think his history with Claudio would allow him the credibility to step into the BCC. He's got a really good background in general. And he's been working as a backstage producer. So I think that bringing in Chris Hero would be one absolutely perfect fit for the Blackpool Combat Club. Who the fuck else would they have? Santana or an Ortiz, maybe, to face off against the Lucha Brothers and Eddie. They've got that built-in history. So if Santana and Ortiz have reunited and they make a surprise appearance as BCC partners, I think that could be a pretty big pop. I think those 3, because they're already AEW wrestlers, have the potential of being a good match for this 6-man clusterfuck of a match at All In. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of Japanese ideas or other international stars that you may have. What are your ideas? Who do you think are the 3? Let's fantasy book this.
I think it's going to be Ryback, Goldberg, and Wardlow. Wardlow is going to recruit Ryback and Goldberg to help out with this match, and BCC will be pretty strong with those 3 guys in the corner. What do you think?
Well, I don't think Ryback is going to get any opportunity to finish his cloning of Goldberg. So I don't think he's going to be able to be in the same match as Goldberg. Their proximity would cancel each other out. It doesn't work. But there's this guy in WWE who just had his contract run out. His name is Adam Copeland. Why couldn't he show up in the Blackpool Combat Club?
Yeah, it would be pretty awesome to see Edge show up.
You couldn't call him Edge. You'd have to call him.
Of course.
You'd have to call him something else. Now, I personally would call him Old Spice because Edge is my favorite shaving cream. It has been for many decades. But you could do Old Spice. Maybe he comes in as a deodorant. I saw Corner. Corner was posted in the Discord. What do you think Edge's new name should be?
Oh, jeez, I don't know.
Pizza Cutter.
The
All
Radar
Edge.
Superstar.
I bet that's trademarked. Now, he could come in as the Rated X Superstar and call himself Pal Venus. Pal Venus.
Pal Venus. There you go.
Right? Right? No. Anyways.
Yeah.
So,
well, House of Black. So what's House of Black doing at All In?
I assume they're going to be against the Acclaim as per later in the show.
Yeah.
So, the Blackpool
Could see
Combat
a
Club.
curveball there. You got Brian Cage, Big Bill.
I would love to see them at All In have some sort of match, but I don't see them fitting in. Well, maybe with Swerve and Darby, they could come out and interfere.
Yeah. Let's see. Colt Cabana's not booked yet for All In.
I don't think he's allowed in England. I don't think that that Punk is allowing him in England. He's not allowed to show up.
So he's just looking at the roster here. Danhausen hasn't been booked yet. That would be pretty wild if Danhausen came out with the PCC.
That would definitely be a surprise, since on the other side is the Best Friends, and that's his faction. He would be
Dustin.
Dustin with the BCC. Ooh.
Ethan Page.
No, he's with Hardy.
Jake Hager. You got some Jericho Appreciation Society guys that aren't doing anything right now.
Let's bring up Matt Menard. Let's bring up Matt Menard.
Jake would fit on that team for sure.
Sure, yeah, because it's primarily ex-WWE guys.
Right.
That's why I say Matt Menard. Bring in the real muscle of the JAS.
Yeah.
His mouth.
Yeah,
it's more powerful than anything.
We got Keith Lee out there still. Lance Archer is still out there.
They're both too big. They're both well over 250. They're not allowed to be booked well.
They're not allowed to be booked
They can't even show up at all.
That match.
No, they need a battle royal. They need a giant battle royal to put all the big guys, because that's the perfect environment for big guys. I guess. I don't know.
Let's see. Miro isn't booked for anything yet. Could you imagine adding Miro and Claudio?
I just realized something. Stadium Stampede.
Yep.
Is coming up. Maybe Fight Forever will update with their Stadium Stampede at Stadium Stampede. Right?
Maybe.
Like they actually do marketing that makes sense. Because they could tie in Stadium Stampede with the Stadium Stampede match at their biggest pay-per-view of all time and promote their game. Like actually draw in some interest.
They could do that. That would make sense.
Really, the only buzz after release was about Stadium Stampede. Because I've kind of given up on the DLCs at this point. I don't know that we're ever going to see them. Because where the fuck are these DLCs that there's a timetable? Yeah, what is the timetable? Don't know. This has been brutal. So you have other ideas as to who might?
I mean, Butcher and Blade could be added with someone else, but I like the idea of going with the ex WWE theme, adding Paul White, adding Jake Hager, and adding Miro. I think that would be pretty badass.
Okay, so Miro and Hager, I'm totally with. They're still totally competent wrestlers, and in a big match like that, Paul White. Yeah, okay. If it's a regular tag style match and not an anything go. Oh no, wait, Stadium Stampede. You're gonna put Paul White in a Stadium Stampede match. He can't run.
Well, he could stay in the ring. I mean, he could stay in the ring area. You can have like 3 guys team up on him, put him through a table. He could just lay there for 20 minutes and then get involved at the end of the match. It would be a spectacle.
That sounds dreadful. That does not sound like good booking for a match at all. Lay there for 20 minutes.
I mean, that's how Kevin Nash did it. in all
I
those
repeat
organizations.
I repeat myself. That does not. I'm a huge Kevin Nash fan, but I'm an NWO Kevin Nash fan. Early NWO Kevin Nash, early NWO Scott Hall, before the problems. Because you want to talk problems, those two were poison. They
Yeah.
were fucking lethal to a locker room. Just
So
lethal.
I'll go with Miro, Jake Hager, and Big Bill
There you
to
go.
round it out.
There you go. That's some
There we
beef.
go.
That's some real fucking beef on that side. And Big Bill. Big Bill, I'm a big fan of. So, there you go.
He's excellent. I'd love to see him. I love how Tony's been using him, and I hope we get to see more.
Yeah, he and Cage are working out. And that's really helping Cage elevate, which I am surprised to see. But Big Bill, man, he's always had more charisma than people thought. I used to love when he would introduce blue pants, and he would do it, not Enzo. It was him doing it.
Yep.
So I've always understood that he's got some levels of charisma he hasn't yet tapped into, and I think it's starting to work finally with him and Cage. So I would love to see more of those guys. Put them absolutely in the match with BCC. Hell yes. Now, they moved on to the Kenny Omega interview. And it was fun for a little bit. You know, Jim Ross did his thing, sit down, and Kenny went through his background and kind of talked about Callis, and who knows how much of it was real, how much of it was kayfabe, but it was a good story, and he has known Callis that long. So there's some legitimacy, some verisimilitude. That's a word for the day, verisimilitude. And he just really talked about how Callis helped make him the level of performer that he is. And then Callis shows up. And then, of course, he's a distraction. And Kenny Omega, the god of wrestling, gets jumped by Takeshita, Jay White, and Juice Robinson. So that was a fun segment that also led into the next one, that led into the next one. So we'll talk about this, the Kenny Omega interview. What was your opinion? He was at least on television, and he got more than 3 words.
He was on TV, but it was taped. It wasn't live. It was, it was filmed in Jacksonville with JR. The camera work was weird. Both of them, Jim Ross looked horrible. And
Yeah,
I mean,
he was poorly lit,
not that,
no makeup.
Not that I want to knock Jim Ross, but he looked in really, really rough shape. His voice has still got that
edge, that
dryness to it, where he's not able to. Seems
raspy.
like he's not able to talk. Yeah, we're very raspy, and I don't know if it's because he's continuing to smoke, and I mean, Ross looked in rough shape. So, anyhow, the positive here was the footage they showed from DDT Pro when Kenny fought Takeshita back in the day, back in like 2013. It was pretty cool to see that old footage.
Yeah,
Takeshita looks like a completely different person than he did back then when he was probably 18 or 19.
Oh yeah. Imagine the images of Nick Wayne when he's in his 20s compared to now. You know he's going to be a beefy dude because he's going to get all the strength training.
It's just Jay White and Kenny Omega have a ton of history together. Jay White took over Bullet Club by turning on Kenny Omega when Kenny Omega was the leader of Bullet Club. Jay White beat Kenny for the U.S. New Japan title. Kenny was the first champ. Jay White defeated him for it. They've teased Jay White in the past on the shows. Do we get any words from Jay White? Do we get any words from Kenny about Jay? No, we just get a beatdown. So yeah, let's just do a beat 'em up segment, and we'll go from there. So I just think it's horrible that they can't allude to any of the history. They can't go into any of the story between these two guys. It's like Kenny refuses to put the Elite in any storylines. It's just all beatdowns, no talking. Other than the stuff with Kenny and Callis, that's it. So, flash forward, Hangman's at the hospital. Who knows where that was taped? He's standing next to an ambulance, which was probably the ambulance that was at the arena. and he's drinking a beer. So that was some character development there. Is Hangman going back to drinking again? And I'm excited to see Kenny and Ibushi and Hangman team up in a 6-man match.
Yeah.
Like Hangman said, it's a dream team. But it's just a shame that we can't get more of a build for a big pay-per-view match than just throwing this together at the last minute because, two guys beat up another guy. And of course, the Takeshita Kenny thing has been going on for a while, but, it's like they haven't really been together too much. There's no words other than KLS and Kenny. I don't know. It just seems like there's so much more that they could have done to build this match up. And Ibushi not being, in the U.S. hurts too. Ibushi's in Japan, so he can't be over and do tapings. But it's just all so after the fact. Kenny hasn't been on TV since the, Blood and Guts match a month ago. It's just rough. It's just unfortunate. Like, how are these guys supposed to build up their brand and, get higher ratings on the segments when there's no character development, no storylines behind them? So,
well, realistically, they were doing great on ratings through these segments. So I'm not too worried about trying to draw people. It was entertaining enough in a general professional wrestling way. Now, we might be a little bit jaded. We're certainly a lot more experienced than a lot of people because we've been watching wrestling, international wrestling, old school wrestling, years and years and years and years. But there are people who have a lot less experience who are enjoying these types of stories because they haven't seen the types of stuff we have over and over. So I forgive a little bit of the storytelling, but they haven't really gone into their Japanese background much other than saying it's a dream match, it's Kota Ibushi, and expecting the general audience to know or letting, I guess, Excalibur fill them in. Can they not use New Japan footage? Is that the problem? Okay.
So yeah, there's Ibushi had a falling out with New Japan, and that's why they might not. But any other footage should be fair game. So, like between Kenny and Jay White, it should be fair game.
You would think there would be some footage that they could get because they have such a good relationship with New Japan. So why not make these packages to introduce us to their backgrounds, to their history? Give them a video package. At least give it that.
Right.
There is something missing right now. There's a couple of spokes or sprockets or tie downs. There's something in the machine that isn't quite working. And it's coming out. It's revealing itself in the product, where you have amazing stuff like Orange Cassidy that covers storytelling and history, and the belt and prestige and all that fun stuff and building towards more matches, surprise return, but you put it in the first segment. Okay, it's Orange Cassidy. I get you're in the first segment, but the Eddie Kingston reveal, you could have done the beatdown. You could have done the save. Maybe you just did the beatdown. The best friends come out, they get beat down. Then later in the show, you do another segment, and the Lucha Brothers, and, whatever. And then to end the show, you do a big segment with the BCC, the best friends, the Lucha Brothers, and the big Eddie Kingston reveal return. Something. But they started the show with it. Okay, so it's a nice, strong start. Great. God damn, did it peter out, though. Because right after Paige, you get the hottest heel on the card, Don Callis. Booed out of the fucking building again. Which Chris Jericho. Okay, so the segment started off okay. Jericho said, yes, I'm going to join. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. There's at least some chemistry there. There's stuff going on. Fine. I'm intrigued. Where's this going? And then the picture reveal with Don Callis and the beheaded Jericho. Jericho gets mad at it. Like, okay, that's kind of what you just talked. You said he's the lowest scum you know. Why did you not expect something like that? He thought you were going to say no. Of course he was going to. I don't get the beheaded photo the picture myself. I don't know why you would have it made. Man. I don't know why you have it made. No, I thought it was funny, but why do you have it made? What's the point of it? What, you're going to cut a scathing promo about how you're going to behead Jericho? I mean, I'm not sure what Callis had planned for it, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think what he was going to do was just when Jericho said no, and Jericho walked out, Callis was going to say, "All right," and reveal the picture and say, "Your head's on a platter. You're done. We're coming after you." And I thought that's all it was going to be, but I thought it was one of the fucking dumbest, but at the same time hilarious things
that's
I've ever seen in wrestling. I did like that.
It was dumb. And again, Jericho takes way too much time. He is kind of a vacuum, because the loudest boos for Don Callis became just gentle boos. And I'm like, this is not the direction. So it was a great image. It was a great painting. It was fun. It was funny. Absolutely. But overall, it just turned into, so then Don Callis and Jericho had words, yelled at each other. Takeshita jumped him. Then Ospreay jumped him. And now then they held him up and Callis hit him with the glass. And then a later backstage segment, now Jericho's a face, apparently. Okay. And Ospreay's with Callis, like we suspected back when he loaned him his security guard. So this is not short-term knee-jerk booking. This is what they had planned, was to have Will Ospreay be a heel. I'm not sure about this. Was Russo-esque with the turn and the double turn and what the fuck. It was entertaining. I'm not going to say otherwise, but I'm confused by the decisions they made and the directions they decided to go. I like Will Ospreay Takeshita as a combo under Don Callis. I think that could have some amazing potential. But Will Ospreay doesn't work for AEW. He's still a New Japan guy, isn't he?
Yeah. This is a one-time deal right now. I mean, Ospreay's contract is up at the end of the year, and I expect Tony to push for him hard. And I think Ospreay is probably done with Japan.
So you think this is just rolling out the red carpet? I'm going to show you how it's done. Shine with us in the future, kind of deal.
Well, I mean, Ospreay's already worked with AEW. I don't know, maybe 10 times. He's worked with AEW a bunch.
Sure.
He's been in the trios tournament. He was, of course, the match with Kenny at both Forbidden Doors. He had that awesome match with Orange Cassidy at the first Forbidden Door, which was one of the best matches in AEW history that should have been given 5 stars. But I think the whole Callis and Jericho and Ospreay thing. I thought Jericho was going to go into this as the heel, and that Jericho was going to be like, Don, pick me or pick Ospreay. I'm not going to be on the same page with this guy. I don't like this guy for whatever reason. But no, they took the heel and made him a face, and they took who's going to be a face at Wembley and turn him into a heel to go with Callis for some reason.
And Sammy Guevara
doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
and Sammy Guevara comes out and makes the save, and he's a tweener. Nobody's really sure about.
Sammy got a ton of cheers. There was a great Sammy chant when he came out. I loved it.
It's true.
He's recovered so well from when he was doing all that shit with Cody, and everyone hated him because he dumped Pam and went with Ty. So
which is the dumbest reason to hate a wrestler. It really is.
Right. So it's just great to see Sammy's recovery from that and able to be a face again. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I think you might see Will Ospreay punch Callis at the thing and get a huge pop out of that. I don't know. Callis helped him beat Kenny at Forbidden Door 2 with the distractions. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with it. I guess it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's disappointing because Jericho versus Ospreay is not the match that that people were expecting. A lot of people were expecting Kenny versus Osprey. I did not, because it didn't make sense right now.
I'd have liked to see it. I'll be honest. That would have been a great match.
Yeah, I mean, Osprey has to win, so Osprey going 2-1 over Kenny right now. I just don't know that would have been the right decision.
No, clearly not.
Yeah, because Osprey couldn't lose to Kenny at Wembley. So, yeah, but I mean, it is what it is, and it should be somewhat entertaining. I'm going to be surprised if they don't turn this into some type of a gimmick match, because I don't think Jericho can go 20 minutes with Osprey without super long rest holds. They're going to be boring as fuck. So, we can't forget that Jericho is 54 or however the hell old he is. So, a gimmick match would be good if they can get some weapons involved and some walking around with fire extinguishers or whatever. I think would help the match quality. So we'll see what happens.
This is definitely a match where Jericho's laying down. There's no question. Will Ospreay?
Well, I mean, he's lost. He's lost like 9 out of his last 10 matches. So,
who, Jericho?
Yeah.
Well, so make it an even 10.
Right. He loses all the damn time now. He's a freaking jobber, and he gets 20 minutes on TV every week.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, he is still one of the biggest names they have. You have to give him the props for that. I don't necessarily like... I still like Jericho, the concept. The execution has been questionable sometimes. But I've always been a fan of Jericho back when he was Lionheart in WCW. And then Y2J and his big premiere there. So he's always kind of been this guy, but at the same time, I don't know. He'll be there, he'll get a big pop, he'll get a big boo, whatever, it doesn't matter to him, he'll get a reaction. People will sing his song, and he gets to wrestle one of the premier athletes of our day, Will Ospreay. It's a win-win as far as Jericho's concerned.
Sure. Whatever Jericho wants.
Pretty much.
Jericho gets.
So speaking of whatever you getting what you want, they did a video package with Jack Perry. He was in the ring. He talked about getting his win over Rob Van Dam, greatest FTW champion of all time. And then he said he's going to retire the belt. And Taz's reaction was pretty much on point. He's like, what? Wait a minute, what? So, obviously, there's going to be a response from Hook. Will it be a match at All In as a result? Maybe. Wouldn't surprise me if it was. Like the opening match. Something super early. But, yeah, that was... He's going to retire the FTW championship, and Taz is not happy about that. What are your thoughts on the FTW title?
I think it's an interesting angle to keep it going. It gives Perry something to do.
Is it time?
Otherwise, he's just kind of wandering around aimlessly.
Is it time to retire that title, though?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, it gives Jack Perry something to do, and if Perry loses it to Hook, then Hook. It gives Hook something to do too. He's not just wandering around aimlessly, just going from opponent to opponent. Having the title gives him, I think, somewhat of an identity. So I'd like to see it continue to be used. I do think it's good. I would like to continue to see the ECW vets get involved. Although they're getting pretty old, so it's now or never with a lot of these guys. So
you think there's going to be a big overbooked FTW championship match on All In, where all these old famous guys get to come out, or
there could be,
or do you think that'll be at All Out?
I think it would make more sense at All Out, because
right.
I think that crowd would be more familiar with the ECW guys than the UK fans, but
also that easier for travel.
Yeah, you don't have to business class, a dozen people over there.
Right, all the old guys that you want to show up, you fly in. Much cheaper to do that here in the States.
Right.
So I would say if they're going to do a big FTW championship match, do that at All Out. And bring in just a host of ECW guys and then let Jack Perry retire it. You know, have them do something. Or maybe reincarnate it, come up with some new title. I don't know. Call it the Jungle Championship. I don't know. They already have a bunch. It doesn't matter. Come out with something new. I don't know that the FTW title has really done much for anybody. Even Hook. He got a great pop when he won it, but that's about it.
I think it's kept him relevant. I think Hook's still pretty over, and I think the title helps. So, I like it. I think it works.
So you say keep it?
Yeah, I definitely say keep it. Yeah,
fair enough.
I think it's just a heel tactic for Jungle Boy.
Fair enough.
So
fair enough. Get under Hook's skin. Get him to get all riled up. Get him mad. That's the typical heel tactic.
He'll fail. He'll fail to retire it. Jungle Boy, Hook will win it back probably, or something along those lines.
Or he won't actually get to retire it. They'll fight for it, and Hook loses and keeps fighting for it, or something. Because I think Hook taking the title back isn't nearly as interesting as seeing him try to beat the guy who he can't seem to beat. Hook has been unstoppable before now. Yes, it took a belt shot and a low blow and a distraction. But somebody finally beat Hook. If Perry gets another win, maybe that messes with Hook's mind. Maybe now he's not the invulnerable Wonder Kid. Maybe we get to hear him cut a promo. I don't know. But it seems like there might be more story to tell if Hook loses to Jack a second time for the title and doesn't reclaim it. Now, Perry keeps the title and they keep running with it. But I think that maybe there's a little bit more story to dig into if they go my fantasy route, because I think I'm right and better.
There you
go. So moving on, we got Darby Allin and Nick Wayne versus the Gates of Agony, which Darby and Nick got jumped while they were doing their entrance. It was, a pretty good match of two underdogs versus two really powerful wrestlers. That's exactly the story that Darby always tells, and certainly the story that Nick is telling, because he's still an 18-year-old undersized guy. He's not a near 40-year-old undersized guy like Darby. Darby's entire shtick is being undersized. So you just kind of have to assume maybe one day Nick will actually be able to put on the muscle that Darby never got, and maybe a couple inches of height.
Yeah, Nick has I think is a much bigger frame than Darby. Yeah. And Darby's only 30. I think you said pushing 40, but yeah, he's only 30. He just turned 30, so.
Oh well, he's still got time.
Darby's not old. I mean, he's probably old from the standpoint of all the bumps he's taken, but yeah. So yeah, I liked the match. I thought Nick Wayne looked really good. He did not look out of place. All his spots were smooth. I think he's showing that he's going to he has a bright future.
Oh yeah.
On wrestling on TV in the U.S. and then we got Joker Sting.
I love Joker Sting. He's different. He brings a different energy. When Steve Borden plays this version of Sting, he's more entertaining and more chaotic, and it fits in better with Darby. The old sort of staunch, bat-carrying regular Sting isn't nearly as much fun as Joker Sting, who got to torment the shit out of Prince Nana. That was fun.
Yeah, for sure.
That kind of built up their upcoming coffin match, which was announced. It was going to be Sting and Darby and I don't know who else at this point in a coffin match against AJ or AR Fox and Swerve. So unfortunately, nobody gets to see the Swerve Keith Lee match that we wanted. That's kind of unfortunate, but maybe All Out the next week after. But
maybe if Keith Lee's allowed on TV.
Yeah. Everybody over 250, not allowed on screen.
Right.
So Sting did his little backstage thing, and he got to play Joker Sting. It was fun. I was surprised Darby Allin and Nick Wei didn't get a solid win. They did get a win. They got a coffin drop for the win. But it was very much an underdog fight. Sting brings a certain level of heavyweight that those two just cannot carry. So I think it'll be a fun match when it's Darby and Sting. I think Nick may be ringside, and if so, might be some involvement with him and Nana, might be some involvement with the rest of the embassy. I almost feel like there's a turn coming for Nick. I know he just got introduced, and we just had an AR Fox turn. I don't know, I feel like there's a turn coming. I don't know from what side and where, though.
I don't know. I don't know if Nick Wayne will go. I think throughout his indie run, I haven't followed it super closely, but I don't know of him ever kind of playing that heel role. I mean, he probably has, but I just don't know of it. I don't know what they're going to do with him. I think he's better as a baby face. So,
Okay.
I think that's where he fits right now. But we'll see what they do.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if they kept him aligned with Sting and Darby, because I think that's a good pairing for him regardless. I think the embassy might be too big, so maybe my idea of him turning and joining them is completely far-fetched. I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Right.
The next segment was MJF and AJ bonding at the Outback Steakhouse. What another fun backstage segment between MJF and Adam Cole. It basically came down to MJF getting an idea from kangaroos about the kangaroo kick. And once again, he's getting another stupid thing over like absolute fucking gold, because he's just that good. It was fun. And then when they came back, they were full. And then they wanted to do their double clothesline against some poor backstage schmo who got double clotheslined into a pool. And then Tony Khan called him into his office and screamed at him. It was just the entire segment then flowed right into the backstage segment, or into the in-ring segment. This was staged well. This was fun. It was entertaining, and Tony actually sounded like a boss. It's kind of fun. What'd you think of the backstage into the in-ring?
I thought the skit was pretty funny. The thing with the Outback Steakhouse, it was kind of in line. They went to that. They went out for Chinese previously, and so they're doing like this restaurant tour. The kangaroo kick. He's getting that over. I feel like it's a little too much of the same. And I would have rather that MJF and Adam Cole fought a match on the show instead of doing another skit. To help
You
get ready
mean
for
a tag match?
Aussie Open.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish they would have had a match, because I just felt like it was more of the same. And when they did come out to do the Tony Khan putting himself on TV, I don't know how I feel about that. MJF did bring up the bidding war at 24 after that happened. He said, "I'm going to remember this come contract time." So that was the first time MJF has alluded to that in a while.
Here's the thing. I swear to God, if he didn't get signed earlier when he did his walkout, if he didn't get re-upped then, I'd be really, really surprised. There's no way he's got a contract coming up in 24. None.
Yeah, I don't think Tony would have pushed him this hard if he could just walk at the end, because that would just be let's create this superstar, this megastar, this international global phenom, and then let him walk to WWE,
right?
So he could main event fucking WrestleMania. And that wouldn't be good. So
no, he's first of all, he is putting him on the main event of the biggest show of all time. That's how much faith he has in MJF. So I think he's definitely shown he totally trusts MJF at this point. I think a lot of this is MJF booking. I think MJF has come up with a lot of this. I think he and Cole maybe have worked out some of the content. But like the backstage part, bringing up the contract, That's all MJF. And you know he got re-signed. You know he got money. You know Tony Khan said, look, you're going to be champion. You're not going anywhere. Here's a bunch of money. Great. I love it. This is the strongest stuff they have going. I also loved, as they came in from the parking lot and they went their separate ways before, Cole looked at the camera and said, come back for our promo, which was great. Roderick Strong comes in late again, gets mad, kicks a tire, and now his foot's hurt. So his neck has been hurt for a month and a half, 2 months, 3 months. Now his foot's hurt. He is a great comedy addition to this already comedic duo. I'm not sure where it's going, but I definitely think it's going to come to a head at All In, and we're going to see more from Roderick Strong, The Kingdom, Adam Cole, and MJF interplaying after the tag match, before the singles match. Gonna have something. Or maybe during the singles match, there'll be shenanigans. We'll see. Then the in-ring stuff, which they kind of talked about it a little bit. Cole talked about himself coming back, and he's been a champion everywhere, and he really absolutely needs to win this match because the subtext was he may never get another chance because his body is currently fragile, and if he gets another head injury, he's done, and he knows it. So that's kind of underlaying the story where they were friends and they talked about their friendship and they built up all of the, the duo they have going on, the kangaroo kick, all of the goofy things that Max can do. And then, of course, Max gave his side, and he's, he bought a new truck, put 90,000 miles, built up the Indy, talked about calling Cody Rhodes or texting him saying, you don't know me, but, and then Cody giving him a chance months later saying, you're in. Got nothing till then. And then he got in, and he got a contract from Tony Khan that night because people backstage said, that's one of the guys we need to sign. And here we are. Now, he's AEW champion. I mean, that's pretty goddamn good for a face. That is a great story, and it's true.
Yeah, he didn't get signed right after All In because there was a long time between All In and when AEW was announced, at least 3 or 4 months. But yeah, I thought it was great that he was able to tell, because a lot of people have said, "Oh, MJF," and I've even seen it on social media. Like MJF was handed everything; he doesn't have the right to criticize, someone like Lufisto because he hasn't had to put in the work. I mean, he didn't have to work long, but he did work hard to get to where he was through the Indies, get that initial offer with AEW. And once he was in, he grabbed that brass ring, and he turned out to be one of the most engaging personalities on TV, who draws ratings, who made people up ratings, who people follow. I think he's been a great champion and a great success story. Definitely a generational talent. We can't say enough about him. He's one of the best. I like that he was able to tell his side of the story, and it was also a little nostalgic hearing about how the first All In came together. Nice to see them still giving props to Cody and not like trying to blot him out of AEW history.
That's the thing about AEW I love, is that they acknowledge the history that people have had, which the Jay White thing with Kenny Omega seems surprising as a result. Because they do acknowledge that stuff. They do talk about it. They own ROH. They can talk about those histories. So it's always surprising when they're openly admitting about Cody, but at the same time not talking about Kenny Jay White, So
right.
I think it ended really, really strong, where it said, hey, may the best man win. And, of course, MJF took the opportunity to say, I'm better than you and you know it. And then Adam Cole, baby. And then they got attacked by the Aussie Open, which I thought was great. And it helped really sell their ROH match for the buy-in 0 hour, whatever they're calling it, the pre-show. So that was fun. And then we skip over the stuff we talked about.
Well, we did see Kingdom and Strong together again, as you mentioned. That there shows me that maybe Kingdom is kind of the replacement for Red Dragon at the moment, and maybe we'll see Strong and the Kingdom and Adam Cole teaming up. So I think Kingdom could see a role at All In that we weren't expecting. We're getting involved in between Cole and MJF, depending on which way they're going to go with this. So we still don't know if if Cole's going to go heel or if MJF is going to go heel. We don't know who's going to. So I think it's definitely a great, interesting story. And going into All In between these two.
Absolutely, and they both said that they have, they're going to do everything to win the match. So that tells me that they're both willing to use heel tactics as faces.
Yep, and they did tease it a little bit, like the turn with was it Adam Cole that was teasing the attack on MJF? Yeah.
And it's the same thing that MJF had done the week before.
Yeah.
And so it's cementing, I had this chance to turn but didn't.
And it was also the same thing that happened at the end of the show, but we'll get there.
It's true. Now, the next segment we're going to talk about is another beatdown, which was the Acclaimed, who came out for a tag match against a couple of unknowns who didn't even get announced. They did their opening stuff, and then as they were in the ring, lights went black. House of Black came up. They slowly took off their ring jackets and stuff, then turned around and got beat down. And at the end, the boots got handed off to Malachi Black. And now he owns the boots of Billy Gunn. Now, the legend is, if you put those boots in the middle of the ring and you're really quiet, you can hear Billy Gunn yell, "Suck it."
Okay.
That's the Ghost of Billy Gunn story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they did something goofy with the boots, and I expect there's going to be a trios match between House of Black and the returning Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed. Now, does that mean that the House of Black lose their trios title? Maybe. Because when they fought CMFTR on Collision, they didn't even get House of Black rules. They didn't get the 20 count. They didn't get anything. They didn't get the special rule, Joker Dealer's Choice. None of that stuff was announced or utilized in the trios match last week on Collision. So, what are they doing? I don't really know. That's unfortunate because could be really cool. I love House of Black. They should have more to do with the belts. But are they just going to up and lose it to the Acclaimed, who are the most overact? And if you get Daddy Ass back and you get 80,000 plus screaming fans yelling, "Oh, scissor me, Daddy," do you not give them the belts? I just don't know. I'm torn because I don't want House of Black to lose. But I do want the Acclaim to win. How do you feel about that upcoming match?
I don't know. I mean, is Billy going to come back and lose again? I just don't see it. I don't think taking the trios title away from House of Black is a good idea right now.
Right.
I think that, I don't know. I don't know where they're going with this. I think it seems like the only way that this is going to make sense is if Billy comes back and they win the trios title. Right. Or somehow the guns get involved and Billy comes back with the guns. And that's his turn.
So then the Acclaimed are in a trios match with just Rando?
Yeah.
Dante Martin? Or Darius Martin, I mean?
Right. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where they're going with this. So the whole thing's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
And because that's not the match at the pay-per-view. So, yeah, I don't know where they're going to go with this.
Right. So, I don't either. I do know that we covered the Texas Chainsaw Masterpiece already. And so
Texas Mess Match.
You could call it that, sure. I'm calling it the Texas Chainsaw masterpiece. Because Jeff Jarrett won. The next segment after that is the winner advances to All In, Britt Baker versus the Bunny. Welcome back, Bunny. Glad to see you're no longer injured. She made her bones in a couple of brutal matches, so I'm very happy to see her wrestle. It really didn't go long, and it ends exactly how you expected. Why are they doing these matches if all of them are so damn predictable? And you gave a bye to one, and you gave a bye to one of them, and the bye didn't go to the champion. I don't really know what's going on with their booking, but I think that they think this little mini tournament is an excusable replacement for character work. That reminds me, there was a clip posted in our Discord. It was a fun little clip from the ROH taping, and it was the ROH Women's Champion Athena, and she was doing a backstage interview segment with. Do you know the name of their interview girl for ROH?
I don't.
Okay. But it was the interview girl there and Billy Starks, who we all know is beloved in the Elite Mark Order Discard. Remember, you can join the Elite Mark Order Discard by going to EliteMarkOrder.com, click Join the Discord, and join in the conversation. So we know Billy is beloved. And it was a great backstage interview where Athena bullied both the interviewer girl and Billy Starks. She promoted how she was the champion. She gave Billy a minion number. Billy kind of ended the segment with, "But I'm not a minion," while she was literally driving her around. It was so much character work in that 5-minute or 3-minute clip. Why the fuck can't we get that on Dynamite? Instead, we get a nothing match with Britt Baker versus the Bunny. No, I don't necessarily want to see more Britt Baker mic work. We've gotten plenty of her. Maybe somebody else could get some more mic work. I thought Athena did fantastic. Why didn't they give her a chance to do any mic work on Dark, or any mic work on Rampage, or any mic work on any of the shows they have? I'm glad they're getting to do it on ROH. That's fantastic. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that on Dynamite. The fuck is up with the women's matches?
Yeah, we've gotten into that pretty heavily the last couple of shows.
I'm sorry, it's on my mind. I'm not going to apologize for wanting better booking for the women and for the men. I'm just never going to apologize for that. But
right,
we are going into the very last segment of the night, the main event, the most interesting match of the night? No. Most predictable match of the night. The Young Bucks, the brothers, Matt and Nick Jackson, versus the Guns, Austin and Colton Gunn. And, you know, it was a really short match. As a matter of fact, the women's match was really short. Of course, Britt Baker won. And then the Young Bucks match was really short. And of course, the Young Bucks won. Big deal. You wonder why you don't get ratings? Nobody expected the Guns to win. After the match, sure, there was a beatdown. Yay. So what? Bullet Club did 3 beatdowns this show. At what point do we care? So FTR comes and makes the save, and FTR faces off against the Young Bucks for All In, which may not even happen now because Cash got himself in trouble. Or it might be nothing. It might be no problem. Cash just got himself a little worked up. A little good old boy. It's not a problem. He's got it under control. I don't really know what the fuck is going on with AEW at this point. I do know that I'm a fan and I want better. I expect better. And why can't they give better? What is wrong with AEW right now? Is it coming off the wheels? What's going on? Is it the Adderall?
Young Bucks Guns was a decent matchup for the most part. It was pretty much your typical Young Bucks versus heel tag team match. Young Bucks got all their stuff in. I think it was just another tuned-up match for their big match at All In, which may or may not happen at this point. We don't know. And then the Bullet Club beat down and FTR coming out. FTR teasing the big rig, or what do they call it?
Shatter Machine. The
Shatter Machine. Teasing the Shatter Machine. Just kind of like Cole and MGF were teasing the attack from behind. It's like, how many times in one show does something like that need to happen? FTR and Bucks should be brawling anyways. It would make their match more interesting if there was some bad blood, as opposed to going in to it with, we have respect for each other. Well, Dax has been bad mouthing the Bucks for 2 years, saying that they're ducking them, turning people online against the Bucks, complaining about them left and right, and then he goes out there and shakes their fucking hand while they're supposed to be promoting a match. I don't get the booking there. It makes zero sense to me. I don't know if the Bucks have creative, or if FTR has creative, or if Tony's calling this the way he wants to see it, but it's just a horrible build for the match between these two teams. It could have been so much better. And they call it, whoever wins this match is the greatest tag team of all time. You have an N Prime Bucks versus an N Prime FTR in the rubber match. And it's a huge match at the hugest arena. And I just feel like the build could be better.
It could
have. Now with Cash being arrested, we don't even know if this match is going to happen. So
exactly. So this is just one more box that they've checked that is just adding up to continual problems somewhere behind the scenes. Now, they lampooned it in the MJF Adam Cole segment, where he's like, these backstage antics will not be allowed. But literally, they're being allowed. So, I'm not sure what can be done, will be done, or should be done. What I do know is they have one more Dynamite, 2 Rampages, and 2 Collisions to get their shit together and figure out what the fuck they're doing before literally the biggest pay-per-view of wrestling history, and hopefully it's not a complete fucking debacle. But on that note,
what's that? Fight Forever. Hoping it wasn't a complete debacle like Fight Forever.
Man, just pour salt in that wound, why don't you?
Right.
They're here $100,000 and they're promoting this video game. And I thought, that's cool. Put it on TV, give them a match. That's awesome. It would also be really cool? Leatherface and Fight Forever. That would have been really cool.
Or maybe promoting Fight Forever. They could have sold $100,000 worth of copies.
Well, maybe, but the game's not good enough. The Leatherface is a game. It's a video game. And if you had Leatherface cross over into Fight Forever, not even as a DLC, as a free LC, or free DC, you got a free downloadable of Leatherface with the chainsaw in the game. Now, first of all, I know Chuck E. T would absolutely love having a chainsaw in the game. He's wanted that chainsaw. I thought he was the one playing the Leatherface, but so before the match started, Jeff Jarrett said that he recruited Leatherface. Leatherface was on his side. It kind of worked out that way because the distraction, but my point is, Leatherface could be a character in their video game with a crossover to another video game. Video game people like other video games, I hear. Maybe video game people would like your video game if their video game favorite was in your video game. You know what I mean? Like, take Leatherface, who has a solid fan base. That's why they're making a video game for a 20-plus-year-old movie. They're making a video game. And you take the main character from that chainsaw video game and you put them in your video game. I hear there's a game called Fortnite that's quite good at doing that. Who did they team up with?
Everybody.
Not AEW, they teamed up with WWE. So you could have your AEW characters in their video game. That's another way to do it. If Stadium Stampede is supposed to be your version of Fortnite, why wouldn't you have Stadium Stampede come out with Stadium Stampede and have Leatherface as your first big skin? Am I just better at this than Tony Khan?
Would have made sense.
I will once again say publicly, Robert, you were right. Fight Forever is going down the fucking drain. I looked at the SteamDB stats the other day, and they're getting about, and this is just PC, but you're getting about a maximum of 60 people on at the same time. 60. That game is on the decline. And I hope it doesn't go the same way as Elite GM. I know AEW owns the engine, and part of the issue has been Ukes or Nordic. Nordic is just the publisher, so they really don't have much to do. I think there's a problem with Ukes. And I think AEW wanting to keep the engine caused Ukes to have a big hissy fit. And I think we're going to have to wait for another version. If I paid for DLC and I don't get my DLC, I'm going to be fucking livid. I paid for Keith Lee, Bunny, and Danhausen. Hook and Danhausen. If I don't get those, that's a problem. And I'm not even mad about it. I'm just upset that I paid for it. There are going to be some really upset gamers out there if they don't do something about the DLC, let alone getting Stadium Stampede out. They've talked about it. When's it coming? Don't know. You can't cross-promote it with Stadium Stampede. There's a big problem. And Robert was right. This game has got issues, and it starts with marketing. I don't know what they're going to do to fix this shit. Any ideas about Fight Forever? Because I barely play it anymore.
No, I think they've showed that they're not going to be transparent with their customers with Elite GM, and they're doing the exact same thing with Fight Forever. But it's almost like they've given up on Fight Forever much sooner. Like, it seems like there's less chatter about it now than, Elite GM was being pushed. It was being pushed on BTE. It was being pushed all over the place, and it just seems like Fight Forever is becoming forgotten pretty quickly. Even though, like you said, they owe you DLC, they owe me DLC, they owe the fans the Stadium Stampede version, and we don't have any idea on what that timeline is. So I don't know if there's problems or what, but or they're just, I don't know. They're only paying a skeleton crew to implement these last features, and there's only a couple people working on it, and that's why it's I don't know. So it's just unfortunate.
If it's funding, I mean, okay, so Tony could throw more money at it. He's got plenty. His dad's told him many times, spend my money before I die. So maybe he could pour more money into it. But at this point, if there's a problem at the programmer level, at the developer level, at the Ukes level, then that's not fixable. We don't have any information. We don't have any backstage info. We don't have anybody who works there that we can talk to. We only know that they're not telling us shit. And that's not the best business practice, but anyways, I guess this is as good as time as any to go ahead and just end this bad boy. I want to thank everybody who's still listening. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, share, give us your comments, join the Discord, elitemarkorder.com, do what you want. Appreciate you showing up. JJ, any last word? Or Jay, any last words?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that next week we can, when we have our podcast, we can talk about some positive steps on where things are going for All In. Maybe some more exciting announces, or maybe some more exciting matches announced. Maybe some clarity on what's going on with FTR and the Bucks. So yeah, so looking forward to what's going to happen over the next week as we set up the final week before the biggest show in wrestling history,
And
which is
let's see
I don't know,
what
it's
sort
like,
of let's see what sort of go home angles they can make happen.
right.
In
It's
a
like
week.
when I think about biggest show in wrestling history, I always think of WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
In the I'm trying to think of the what was that city in northern Canada they had the show at,
Oh, it
in
wasn't the Alamo
Saskatchewan,
Dome. It was the Silver Dome.
right? In Saskatchewan, what was it?
It
Because
wasn't the
MJF
Silver Dome.
referenced
Yeah,
it.
it was the Silver Dome. It was
The
Saskatchewan Silver Dome.
Saskatoon
Saskatoon.
Silver Dome.
That's it. That's it.
But yeah, I loved the MJF calling it that. I thought that was hilarious. After all the travel issues and everything they had getting there, but you think back to WrestleMania 3, and it's like, what was the build for the Hogan Andre match? And you could say, well, yeah, MJF versus Adam Cole has had a pretty long build. But it's like beyond that, you had like the Steamboat versus Savage match, which had been set up for months and months. And other matches on that show had been feuds that had been brewing for a long time, like Harley Race versus Junkyard Dog, Billy Jack and Hercules. You had these longer feuds going with the Heenan family and some of the faces, Piper Adonis, and it just seems like Tony should take some notes here and building up a big show and put some more time into some of the angles instead of only having like one or two that are built up and everything else just being last minute. So.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with a majority of that. Unfortunately, this is what we got. This is what we get. So hopefully we can make some lemon out of these, or make some lemonades out of these lemons. All we need is a shit ton of sugar and water.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. We love you. JJ for life.